November. Every day, every minute, even every second, they're like snowflakes or sand. They don't have copies. They are completely different and unlike each other, and many factors contribute to this phenomenon, including the weather, which presents new surprises from time to time with each change of season. So, November. It was only the third month of autumn, and the snow had already completely covered the ground with a white layer, turning the city into one big nebula. White flakes fell almost every day, varying in time from several hours to a whole day, turning everything around into a continuous veil, among which one could see only gray, dull five-story buildings with lights burning in some places and stumps of crumbling dead trees, many of which had been cut down by a bizarre tangle of old branches. The story happened in District N, which looked like an echo of the old post-war times with crumbling two-story houses with more terrible emergency cracks than residents, and neat bushes that decorated these god-forsaken places in the warmer months. For the most part, the inhabitants of the district were not the most prosperous middle-aged couples and pensioners, living out their days in faded apartments with faded and mildew-blackened wallpaper, along with cockroaches that hide behind kitchen cabinets and crumbling risers during the day, and in the evening crawl out to hunt for stale bread crusts that have fallen behind the tables. And the plates and the forgotten ones are there. Who knows what's in their heads? To be honest, in fact, no one knows at all who lives in these old moldy shelters, who hides behind dark openings of broken windows and carved rusty bars, who does not turn on the lights there at night and walls up the windows with bricks, making the once cozy houses ugly. Anyone in their right mind believes that this was done for the purpose of interesting design or renovation. But I suppose it's different. I've never been to the attic, that's why we need to go there. Are you smart? The girl, wrapped in a scarf and a long khaki coat, had a rather loud hoarse voice, but even it was carried away by the wind somewhere in the distance, which is why the Minister of Defense periodically had to ask again. Their conversation looked ridiculous. Almost every 15 minutes there were shouts of what or I can't hear. An endless repetition of the same phrase following them. Not really, but I'll trust your unshakable logic, except that the attics are usually closed. Yes, and in the entrance. Let's check it out. The guy in the black hat pulled up to his eyes had no time to finish his sentence, as Mr. Minister was already overcoming the snowdrifts that had been marked for a week, which blocked her path to the gaping hole in the open entrance with the sagging red door. Against the background of the general whitishness, it looked like the mouth of a monster that was waiting for some curious passerby to look inside, never to let it out again. Yes, fuck. The guy had to follow the director, then stepping over snowdrifts, then falling into them and collecting thousands of icy prickly snowflakes in his shoes. The girl, as soon as the minister stepped onto the porch of the entrance, ducked inside and quietly, like a mouse, went to the top floor. It wasn't that late, but the house seemed too quiet from the inside, as if no one lived here at all, or was sleeping soundly. There was a musty smell of dampness in the air, cat urine, some kind of medicine, and, it seemed, the sweet smell of rotten fruit. It must have been someone who didn't take out the garbage bag, just putting it on the landing. This phenomenon was common among residents of old houses. But the director and his minister walked through all two miserable floors and they didn't see any garbage, and they didn't even see a single puddle, only in some places the bare gray walls were affected by mold. Mr. Minister stopped, looking up. It's open. She spoke softly and briefly, all the enthusiasm disappeared somewhere. It was worth looking at the black hatch, which was even darker than the darkness of the entrance, and the rusty unstable staircase. Listen, you're the first one, and I'll stand guard. Suddenly, he'll get out there, she said uncertainly. Maybe you don't need to. Let's get out of here. It is necessary. I've never been in an attic, I'm curious. What is there? What if there are corpses? Pipes, more like. Okay. He went to the ladder and took hold of the first rung, testing its strength. Then a second, a third, and soon disappeared into the darkness, from which only booming footsteps could be heard. 1, 2, 4. The girl abruptly turned her head towards the green wooden door on the right, from where she heard shuffling sounds. It doesn't seem to be a big deal, but she froze, afraid to attract the attention of something on the other side of the door, and it was worth calling the guy from above. In his position, it was impossible to escape from the alleged pensioner. "What are you doing here?" A strange hollow voice was heard from behind the door. It rolled and sounded like a woman, then like a man. Goosebumps ran down the girl's spine. She couldn't think of anything better than to remain silent. She wanted to jerk down and run away, but she couldn't leave the guy there in the attic, so she just stood on the landing, not daring to take any action. "What are you doing here?" The question was repeated from behind the door, and Mr. Minister called softly, "Maox. Come here." He didn't hear and had to call out louder. Fortunately, after the second summoning, a familiar surprised face appeared from above. Unfortunately, it's not the only one. The mug sticking out from behind the door had a strange shape and caused dissonance, some kind of eerie valley effect. Not only did the old wrinkled face of the bespectacled woman have a mouth that was too wide, and there were at most 3 strands of sparse gray hair on the large head, but the neck on which it all rested was unusually long. The pensioner stuck out from behind the ajar door, but neither arms nor shoulders were visible. "What are you doing here?" The voice came from very close by, and Mr. Minister turned pale from the way the sound was carried. It seemed to have no source and sounded louder and quieter all around. She just didn't understand how it could actually make sounds. How can it exist? "We're in. Watch." Maxim replied in a strangled but calm voice, although the girl doubted that the creature parodying the pensioner could understand them. "Why?" There was a short phrase. "Because it's open." A little sarcastically, but very quietly, the voice was trembling with horror. The girl answered, grabbing the guy by the hand, and dragged him to the stairs, without taking her eyes off the woman. "What are you doing here?" A minute later, they both flew down to the ground floor with a crash, falling out into a large snowdrift that had formed in front of the porch during that time. He cushioned the fall, and the necks remained intact. "When did he get here?" The Minister of Defense spat snow. "Is that the only thing that bothers you?" The girl jumped up and in 2 jumps found herself on a marked road. "No, it's simple. Everything is confusing, but we were there for a maximum of 20 minutes, and the snow was like 2 days. And not a single trace. Look at the tracks anyway. Let's get out of here." The director hissed, forcing the guy to get to his feet and move away from the cursed entrance. She looked up. Not a single window in this old house was lit, and the overall impression of some kind of abandonment was perplexing. The silent scene continued all the time that they were walking through the neighborhood. Either there was nothing to say, or no one dared to utter a word in this dead silence, constrained by some incomprehensible inner fear, which receded only when the sudden rumble of the wheels of a passing tram crashed into their ears. "Prospect. I'm going home, I guess. Cold," Mr. Minister said, putting her hands in her pockets. "It wasn't that cold, actually. I just wanted to hide, get as far away as possible, and think about what had happened." "Go ahead. You live nearby." "I'll walk myself." She nodded softly towards the 5-story buildings covered with fog and a veil of snow, turning her back to her friend. The rest of the way home, the girl wondered what had happened and where such a creature had come from. Can she get out of there? To other houses.